three guitar players so good that they actually did damage to their genres. Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett and welcome to Real Guitar Talk, the series where I talk about serious things that affect, I think, modern guitar players that I haven't seen talked about a lot. And today I want to talk about some negative trends that can actually come from really, really great players. Now, I want to make it clear from the start because I think some people might get a little touchy about this one. I'm not saying this in a way to degrade the artist, and I'm also not saying it in a way to degrade the fan base or to be nasty to any particular fan base of a certain musician. What I am saying is, if you're someone who kind of has gone down this trend, maybe rethink it a little bit, kind of get back on track, or if you're someone who finds this artist a huge influence, and you're more starting out, sort of beware of this trap. So these are three guitar players who are phenomenal, who I think have given a lot to music, but again, they were so good and became sort of so iconic in their own ways. There were people who kind of took that inspiration from them and went down what I think is not really the best road. Number three. All right, I bet from the comments that a lot of you might have seen this one coming. The John Mayer craze, and particularly the obsession with his gear. Now, obviously my channel is gear oriented, and that's what we talk about. We talk about all kinds of like little details, little nuances and things that make one piece of gear better than another for whatever you're trying to do. I've never seen an artist who people got so into the gear of as John Mayer. Maybe a little bit Jimi Hendrix and David Gilmour, and that might have been worse in earlier decades, but I think the people kind of trying to nail his sound, at least from a demographic standpoint, is probably subsided a little bit, whereas, Mayer being more modern, there's still people who are just absolutely nuts. Will have the exact pedal board, spend thousands of dollars on the same kind of guitar and amp setups and things. John Mayer, first of all, is a phenomenal guitar player. I have no problem saying that outright. And I think one of the things that we don't talk about that he did was he also legitimized some pop rock for men. I know that seems sort of silly to say, but so when I was in high school, I played on the sports teams and things. Everyone else liked Eminem and Slipknot. This was back in the late 90s and things. And I actually liked kind of oldies and old pop rock. So, they'd be listening to Slipknot and I would be listening to The Lovin' Spoonful. It was a lonely time for me, let's just say that. There was kind of this masculinity thing wrapped into it, like, if you were a real man, you listen to this kind of heavy music. And I'm certainly not knocking, anyone else's music that way, but I think having an artist who was into that pop singer-songwriter rock type thing, who was also a wailing blues guitar player, sort of legitimized the like of that music. But again, the problem was that a lot of young players got too interested in the gear. And this also went down to the manufacturers, right? It's like the fact that the Blues Breaker Overdrive is so popular and iconic nowadays is really because he picked up a cheap Marshall pedal that was out of fashion, did a cool album with it, and then, all these the companies said like, oh, we need to make our own Blues Breaker and things, and that's part of what set off the boutique pedal craze, is just that one pedal and him using it. And I think also part of it has to do with the internet and the fact that guitar on the internet became such a thing. Because again, you go back to like Hendrix and Gilmour, particularly in the era when they were really successful, you had your guitar magazines, and you didn't, certainly before the internet for part of it, but even when the internet kicked off and really became, the thing that it is now, all that stuff started slowly. So I think Mayer's timing with that just got people a little too obsessed with his gear. And I'm not saying that these are bad players. There are a lot of people who are fans of John Mayer who are phenomenal players. But again, it's that kind of like, playing Mayer's exact rig won't make you play like him. And I don't think he'd want that for you anyway. I certainly don't know him, but I would think that he would want you to find your own voice on the guitar. Number two. This might be out of the wheelhouse of some of the people who follow my channel, but I think a lot of you will probably like Van Halen as well. Really, if you look back at rock history, there was no guitar player who slammed on the scene like Van Halen. He was just playing futuristically in ways, just light years kind of beyond what was out around him. And I'm not saying that in a way that puts down the music that came before him, because I actually generally favor that music. But I think a lot of guitar players who got really into Van Halen were blindsided by the speed and the technique, and they missed the musicality. I still see people who, kind of more into like the blues rock, classic rock type stuff like I am, who will say like, yeah, Van Halen, like you got to respect that band, but his playing, like, I don't know, I just don't hear it and things. It's like, yeah, it just seems like blistering speed. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You listen to Van Halen, he has an incredible level of musicality. May he rest in peace. An incredible sense of musicality that I think got lost on a lot of players just trying to emulate that speed and precision that they saw. So you got a lot of people who were inspired by him, and it's just the blistering speed and technique, but it's like it misses something extra that he had. He had something, he felt what he was hearing. People love to talk about feeling versus technique, which I don't think it's a good argument. In fact, I've done a video on this one as well. And I'm not someone who actually believes less is more. I think less is more is a phrase that a lot of guitar players use to basically make an excuse that it's hard to learn more. I'm not saying more is more. I'm saying, it depends on the music. Sometimes, sometimes a song calls for a lot of notes. Sometimes it doesn't. Van Halen, I totally get the sense that when he was playing, he felt every note. And I'm actually going to link to a video of him playing just to kind of prove this point. This is just him playing solo at a concert. And again, the level of musicality is just absolutely incredible on a different level from what I saw a lot of the players who sort of took that technique and speed and just rolled down that direction. So if you're someone who kind of falls into that trap, remember to, it's fine to play a lot of notes, but remember to focus on the fact that you're playing a song, you're not playing a recital. And number one. This one is purely a copycat thing. Some people might say that this one's a little bit hypocritical in the sense that, well, Stevie Ray Vaughan certainly borrowed a lot from Albert King, but there was a lot of Stevie that was 100% him. And so I never liked when people were like, oh, well, Stevie Ray Vaughan just played Albert King licks that were, a little bit faster. It's like, no, 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 there was a lot that came just from him that I've never heard anyone else play anything like. I still have never seen an artist who people try to copy so much. And again, there's another, yeah, we all take bits of our influences and they become kind of what we play. And I've seen blues players be like, well, I'm just taking my influence, and it's kind of like, really? Because you're playing a Stratocaster detuned half step with a cowboy hat and you're playing his licks note for note. I'm not Stevie. You're not Stevie. Also, may he rest in peace. And part of this comes from the fans. I played at a big blues showcase once with a bunch of bands, and we got good applause, so I'm not complaining or anything like that. But what I saw a group that covered Stevie Ray Vaughan note for note, and they weren't very good, and I never would say that to their face, and I certainly won't say who they were, because I don't, I'm not interested in starting that. They got thunderous applause greater than anyone else in the group. So there's certainly something in the fan base that's kind of like pushing that as well. But, I also remember when people would say just like, well, I like a Stratocaster for that bluesy tone. It's like, really? I think you're just saying you want to be like Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I get it. He was so good. He was so good and so iconic in his way that he made players want to be like him. But again, I go back to the point of, I'm not him, you're not him. So the best you can do is take his influence and then try and take it into a different direction. Because otherwise, we're just being a bunch of copycats and playing things that we've already heard. And this might make some of you sad. I struggle listening to him now. There's nothing against him. He was brilliant, and we should thank God that he was with us for the time that he was and contributed the music that he contributed. But sometimes when I hear his songs, I've heard his licks regurgitated by other guitar players so many times that I'm tired of them and I don't want to hear them anymore, even though they're coming from him who was the master. So I try to kind of back off from that world a little bit, and hopefully I'll regain my absolute love for it. I never had a smile on my face like the first time I ever listen to a Stevie Ray Vaughan album. I kind of heard, it's like, who's this guy who plays the beat up Stratocaster? And then I got his CD, because we used to listen to CDs back in the day. And I just like the first couple of songs, I was like, oh, this is magnificent. So hopefully I will get that back at some point. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are there any other artists that you think were so good that people kind of actually took their influence and their inspiration in the wrong direction? What do you think of the artists that I mentioned today? I'm Jack Fossett. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.